on the Nifty. Rohit Srivastava, fund manager at Sharekhan, is with us. Rohit, good morning. Good to have you back. So you were, the last few times you were on, you were saying, well, the market will go higher and then higher first. I mean, that was your view. And I think we are higher now, last 3 days, very strong. How do you see things now? Do you think it will stretch from here?
Yes, the target for that view was around 7,800, and most of the expiry week it actually was going nowhere, so I was not sure whether it would play out, but it is playing out right now. So 7,800 is the target for this for the current setup, and we'll have to see whether it gets past that and something new develops. But the current formation is that of an ending structure, which means that we would start looking for some kind of top close to 7,800.
Do you think we'll get to that 7,800 target pre-budget?
Looking at the pace of the movement today, it appears that is possible, but we can't say if the pace slows down. I think stock-specific activity would be far stronger than the index itself. So it's possible that the index from here on just creeps up 20-30 points a day, and you continue to see a lot of activity in stocks because of the news flows, and in that sense activity would remain high till the budget time. So it's a little tricky to say exactly timing it with the budget, because that's like 7-8 trading sessions from here. But this is what we are looking at right now, is that a move to 7,800 was possible, and once we get there, then we'll see if any more alternates open up, whether something bigger can happen. But right now, I think the possibility would be more for a top close to 78.
Yeah, I mean, could be around the budget as well, right? Do you think in many sectors, like PSU names, infrastructure, capital goods, banks, the budget would be an event to sell into? So you get a repeat of, in a smaller degree, you get a repeat of what you saw on the election day. Markets gapped higher, went up quite a bit, but ended higher, but substantially off the high. Think we could see a repeat?
See, the budget in India historically has ended up being top or a bottom, I think 9 out of 10 times or more than that. So apart from, I think, the 1991 budget, which was the first round of reforms, I think apart from that, most budgets even after that for at least 5-6 years, you always saw that markets would rally ahead of the budget on hope and then top out over there. So I think a lot would be answered by the budget itself, because if it's just a hope that gets killed on that day, then yes. But I think there's a lot being expected as well, and since we really don't know what's, everybody appears to be clueless right now in terms of what is really going to come out of this, because it's not an easy budget to be in financially, but there's a lot of room for policy measures that could create room for positives. So because of that, I'm not sure whether the markets would just top out on that day, or it would extend a little bit beyond that. That would be a slightly tough call right now.
Right. Okay. But you think that would be a turning point, not maybe that day, but around that time.
Unless there are hugely positive surprises, something can change. There is a potential for change here, purely from a policy point, and it would have to be dramatic. If it's not, then yes, you typically get a top close to or on the budget day. But if there are some very dramatic moves in terms of how things work, then you might see a different outcome.
Right. So you're saying the budget has to have that shock and awe element, right, for the market to actually push higher substantially from where it would be around that date.
That's right.
Right. But if the market, if it turns out to be a top, right, 7,800 or so, then what is the road ahead after that, Rohit? Do you think correction, etc., will be meaningful or very shallow?
we do top close to 7,800, the correction would be meaningful. The reason for that is that I mentioned it's an ending structure. The entire pattern that we are seeing from the election day to date is something that we call an ending diagonal, and a top at 7,800 would complete that pattern. So if we do top close to that, it would mean that you probably go back and test the starting point of that move, which was around 6,800. So in that sense, it would be meaningful, around 1,000 point, 10-15% correction in the market. That would be the first thing. Holding that level would be very important to maintain the long-term bullish stance on the market. So it would be essentially a test of trend, whether everything that happened from April to now was the beginning of a larger uptrend, or whether it's just the end of something, is what would get determined by that correction itself.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. Going into the budget, Rohit, do you think it makes sense to go long volatility, buy some straddles or something?
What I'm recommending is actually not to get in too much into the index, because that's just 100 points that I'm looking at from here. If you ended up buying straddles, and you could lose a lot on volatility. You just look at it from the election day to date, last 3 months. The open interest on the call side has been the highest on record, net of the puts. So that's around almost 20,000 crores net call open interest closed out in the month of May. Another 16,000 crores closed out in the month of June, and you already have around 13-14,000 crores net open for this month, which means if I combine all 3 months, people would be in a position to lose up to 45,000 crores buying call options. Somebody who sold those options probably made a lot of money. So essentially, call buyers are not being rewarded completely in this time period, but they are being rewarded on the stock side, not on the index side. So if you see stock specific movements, there have been a lot. So the focus really should be, if you are really looking at trading from here to the budget, trade stock specific moves. Completely avoid the index, because that has not really worked out here.
Right. No, so you'd go long call options on stocks rather than the index.
That's right.
Yeah. Anything else one can do? Any specific trades?
Yeah, the stocks that I'm recommending this morning, based on the setups, are SAIL, that is Steel Authority. That could have 5 to 10% upside from here. The second one that I looked at was Jayaprakash. There too, one more leg up might be possible. And a third one from the smaller stocks was Adani Power, which has moved up in the last couple of days and could have some more upside. So these are a couple of stocks that I looked at for long trades.
These are you buy them in futures or cash?
You could buy them on futures, or you could buy them in cash, or you can buy them in via the call options. Either way, that doesn't matter.
Right.
That's a function of what leverage you want to actually take.
Yeah. What about IDFC? It's done about 20% in
I like
index from the start of the year. Yeah, but it's a high beta name, so it could potentially outperform, right?
Yes, IDFC is also looking good. It may correct a bit and should be bought into on dips because it's given a buy indication in the last 2 days. It's just above the 20 DMA. It's not showing much momentum today. So if you do get a dip, I think it's a good buy at this level.
Okay, so that's the market here. Rohit, what about global markets? What's your reading of the setups there? All well?
See, global markets have all been at a new high, but if I just look at what happened on Friday, the European markets, many of them closed on the weak side. At least 3 of them gave sell signals on their weekly charts. 2 of them are showing weakness on monthly charts. So there was some concern I had from the European market side. The US itself has been even though it's made a new high, it has a similar ending kind of structure like the one that we have on that I'm talking about for the Sensex itself. It has a similar structure, and the upper end target has already been met yesterday. So the next 2 days, I would be watching whether those highs are significantly surpassed or whether you end up getting a top here. We still don't have a confirmation on that, so I can't say it is topping out, but you do have a pattern which can result in a meaningful top in the US markets. So, and a very similar situation which you're seeing everywhere, which means US also the put call ratio essentially is at a very low level, which means people are buying a lot of call options. The same pattern you're seeing in India. So this is essentially an extremely strong sentiment towards buying call options or buying the long side of the trade among traders, and it's a high which is a multi-year high. In India, it's like an all-time high in terms of the net position, but in terms of the OI put call ratio, it would be a 3, 4, 5-year kind of a high in both these markets. So you're seeing some kind of an extreme in sentiment, which usually corrects. You have to just figure out the end point. Once you start getting that correction, typically it would be a deeper one and not a smaller one based on that indicator.
Right. No, so then what's your sense? I mean, you think US indices are near, somewhere near a top? It's kind of difficult to call. And the way forward could be a sharp correction?
That's right. You could get a sharp correction. Calling the top has been difficult because a lot of sentiment indicators did give signals that you could be close to a top for couple of months now. But that hasn't really happened, and each time the market has really pushed up to one more new high. Even though the net gains in terms of percentage might be small, but you haven't really had a trend reversal. So you want to see that happen. You would like some confirmation, but there is considerable risk that can come in from global markets at some point of time. But we're still not seeing that. There are just indications. For example, and there's this entire move into commodities. If you watch that, you've seen crude go up, then you've seen copper prices, base metal prices move up, and you're seeing gold and silver also move up. Typically gold and silver tend to invert with what is happening in world equities. They usually get stronger when world equities get weaker, and we are seeing some strength in gold and silver since the early part of 2014. There was a correction in March, April, and again in the last couple of weeks we've seen them gain. So that shows that there is some asset class shift happening, but it's still not reflected in actual equity prices. So, but it's a warning indicator that you could see that inversion come in at some point.
Okay. No, but is oil headed higher, substantially higher, Rohit?
My sense is yes, at least till 110, 111 on the WTI crude. It's holding the $104 support unless it goes below that, and the structure is that it probably would not and will make one move to $110, $111. Now, will a bigger move occur would be subject to whether it breaks the 110 mark. If it does not, then I think it would probably top there, and then you'd start seeing crude prices head lower again. But if it gets past that, then we would start projecting much higher levels.
And you think gold will?
Gold and silver, I think, have made a bottom for the rest of the year. So I think gold and silver made, they were falling from 2011. It's almost a 2.5 year long bear market that they've been in. And I think that's ended. I think both of them are now in strong uptrends that could last maybe for a year or two. Gold in particular, I think, would be stronger simply because silver could come under pressure if you see a significant equity sell-off. We do see typically silver tends to react even to what happens in base metals. So I would be more certain that over a period of time gold would perform better. But right now both gold and silver both are giving indications on all time horizons, whether it's weekly, monthly, long term, medium term, short term, that they are headed higher.
Good conversation, Rohit. Thanks very much for coming in, as always. Appreciate it. Rohit Srivastava, Fund Manager at Sharekhan. Let's take a break here. We're going to come back into Rajiv Bajaj. Is going to be with us when we return.